Well, long time no see. First and foremost, I want to welcome you guys back to Sovereign Gaming in Life Sims, the YouTube channel where I build worlds, lots, and share my thoughts on video games and the life simulation gaming space. I want to welcome you guys first and foremost back to the world of SimCity, the custom Sims 3 world where I have been building things out lot by lot at this point in time. And honestly, for the past while, I have been thinking about this project non-stop, and for those of you that have been with the channel for a little while now, the reason why I've had to put like such a significant pause in publishing videos and getting videos produced is, well, I'm going to call it pretty much the perfect storm of circumstances. I started an architectural program and it ended up being a lot more intense than I had anticipated it being. So it was hardcore really up until now, where I've had like a little bit of time to breathe, to actually think about my YouTube channel. And the other part of that storm is just that I've got a really complicated build that I am going to be sharing with you guys with today's episode. So it was really a combination between those two elements that were at play there. And so I decided to prioritize my schooling and everything. And I just have to say, like, you guys are nothing short of awesome. You have stuck with me throughout this whole experience of me just kind of starting my own YouTube channel and just sharing this work in progress project with you all. And the fact that you're still here and still kind of sticking around and all that really does mean a lot. And I'll get more into the logistics with my channel going forward and everything, but I just wanted to quickly just say thank you on that end here, just because I did have to take a significant amount of time off from working on the channel, just really due to both of those circumstances at play here. I'll share more in a future video on what I plan to do with the channel going forward, because the school year is obviously not over for me quite yet, and I want to get a better feel as to what I can promise you guys with content going forward here. But you know, as I said, I will share that in a future upcoming video. Today, we are going to start by really discussing what we have, what we're going to be doing today, and with today's speed build, which is a speed build that I have been super excited to get done, and a speed build that was very complicated to actually execute. So let's just dive right into it, and I'll share with you some of my vision for the neighborhood that we'll be building in today. In the last episode, we left off with just adding some of the finishing touches to the midtown lots that I had built over the course of a couple of episodes, and in the middle of that I had decided to balance it out with some suburban single-family home builds as well as some townhouse builds. Now that kind of pacing is still going to be present going forward. However, this time around we are actually going to be starting on a new neighborhood, and this neighborhood is known as the Far East Neighborhood. And my vision for this neighborhood has always been that it is a fusion and really a mixture of different Eastern cultures that are present out there, with of course like the more predominating cultures being like Chinese and Japanese culture. That's just going to be the case with this particular neighborhood going forward, only because that's really where I have a lot of access to a lot of the assets there. And so when we look at the Far East neighborhood, the way that I have designed it is that it has 6 lots that are apart, that make up the entirety of this neighborhood. Now, 2 of the lots I will end off with, and those 2 lots will just sort of help us to transition into other neighborhoods, but I'll cross that bridge when I get there. I'm mostly concerned with today's episode being that that one lot that really anchors everything together and really helps to make the Far East neighborhood actually make a lot of sense. Now, beforehand on my channel, I had I had sent out a poll based on some street names about naming one of the streets, and it was voted that it should be Crumple Bottom Avenue for one of these streets going east-west. Well, the way that I figure it is that since cities do this all the time, they have a street that terminates at a certain intersection, and then it continues on with a new street name. So I figured that because there was a really great comment that was left on that particular poll, that I may as well have the best of both worlds and just use both the names Crumple Bottom Avenue for the lots that are joined to that street outside of the Far East Square neighborhood, and then use Shane Simlaw Way as the addresses for everything else within the Far East Square neighborhood. So that way I'm getting the best of both worlds, but I'm kind of getting a little ahead of myself. The vision with the Far East neighborhood is, again, like I had mentioned, to incorporate 6 lots, really give them a cultural influence to them based on neighborhoods in the Far East regions of the world. And unfortunately, like with 6 lots available for me to build, I can't fit them all in. So I'm really having to pick and choose, and I'm really going with like a Chinese and Japanese dominant influence for the rest of these 6 lots, with a couple of other cultures just kind of popping in here and there, just to really try and bring about that fusion element to this region, or sorry, to this neighborhood. I mean, even the name itself, Far East, which was a destination that you could visit in The Sims 2 with the Sims 2 Bon Voyage expansion pack, it was never specific about which Far East region you were actually visiting to, that you were actually taking a vacation to. And so I kind of appreciate that sort of ambiguity, because it just allows me to exercise a lot of creative freedom when going about with this lot here. So yeah, today we are starting out with what I think will be the most important lot of this neighborhood, because like I mentioned before, the architecture of it is going to help to make the area make sense. It is a complete departure in terms of architecture from what I am used to building. And no, I can't hide behind a shell at this time for an urban build. So it certainly was one that did really test me in terms of style, skill, and just generally like the references that I was using and whether or not I was able to pull it off. So I was very impressed by the end of this. And even though today's just like a part 1 of the build for this lot, it was something that I feel is very necessary to at least show you guys that I could get the exterior done. And that's really where we're going to be ending off this episode. It's just as soon as we finish up the exterior, I'll do a couple of interiors just to share with you how that's going to look in terms of being able to execute the vision, and yeah, just kind of take it from there. And then in part 2, I'm going to finish off with the interiors, and then we're just going to call it a lot and keep it moving. And then of course, like the speed build that will be done after this particular lot will be moving back into Blue Water Village for another suburban single family home. But I'll kind of get more into that in part 2 of this build. So yeah, with all that said, with the Far East Square neighborhood just kind of explained here, let's just jump right into the speed build. So my vision for the Far East neighborhood actually centers around this very lot that I'm about to build for you guys. And the reason being for that is that I've always wanted to, I wouldn't say recreate, but I would definitely say pay tribute to Kill Bill Volume 1's House of Blue Leaves. Within that Kill Bill movie, let me tell you, there is a super awesome action scene that takes place and in a place called the House of Blue Leaves. It's essentially the place where the main character, played by Uma Thurman, goes against Lucy Liu and her army of bad guys, and basically there's like a huge ass whooping scene. And you know what, like when that movie came out and when I saw it, it really left an impression on me, and so I really wanted to pay tribute to that. But what's more important about, well, I guess what's just as important, I should say, about that particular scene and that particular sequence of events is that they actually, although it is based in Japan, they had to build the set in China and actually film in China. So again, we get that nice blend of two Eastern cultures here. And so I felt that, you know, in terms of the Far East neighborhood, or sorry, Far East Square being a blend of Far East cultures, that this is kind of like the perfect lot to try and take a lot of inspiration and to try to recreate to the best of my abilities. Now, I know I just called it a recreation here, and I should really be careful to use that term carefully, just because with the amount of objects and with my hesitations with downloading a lot of custom content here and there, I obviously can't like do a one-for-one recreation. However, I can certainly take a lot of influences in terms of the architecture, or sorry, more so the interior architecture, I should say, as well as yeah, I can take a lot of influences from it and try my best to like recreate it with the Sims 3 objects and Sims 3 store items that I do have in my game. So yeah, I've been very excited to actually build this one, because it is really my first really strong movie reference to actually try to build within my own SimCity world here, and I just feel like it fits the vision of the Far East Square neighborhood just absolutely perfectly with the history of everything that it has accompanied to it. And you know, like I said, they had to film it in China. However, it's based in Japan. It was based off a reference off of a restaurant in Japan as well. So it's like it was the perfect blending already, and just kind of the perfect reference that I really wanted to try to recreate from. Now, with that said, there's a scene, like the last scene of Kill Bill Volume 1 is really where Uma Thurman and Lucy Liu are having this hardcore, like beautiful fight in the snow. However, like when you look at the architecture of everything, you do notice that like Lucy Liu had to go up a set of stairs into her like little tea room. I don't even know what it's properly called here, so I do apologize. But she had to like go up a set of stairs, and and they were eventually like, you know, crossing swords outside in the outdoors, kind of on that same level. So to me, what that really showed me was that there needed to be a little bit of playing with levels here, in terms of there being like outdoor access after going up a flight of stairs. That's how I understood the demands of the architecture for this particular structure. And so that's obviously going to influence a lot of what I needed to achieve within this build. It takes a lot of inspiration from Japanese architecture, although some of the outdoors and some of the landscaping is more Chinese in certain respects here and there. So there's really a huge blend going on. Plus I have this interior movie reference being from Kill Bill Volume 1. So there was a lot of stuff at play, a lot of things that I wanted to achieve with this build, and you know, I feel like I was able to achieve it by the end of it. And although I feel like I might have been able to do it, I'll let you guys obviously be the judge of that within the comment section. But yeah, with my understanding of the architecture demands, the only thing that was really complicated was trying to get like an outdoor setting that you can access from going up a flight of stairs. And so luckily, to me, that felt like I just needed to have that set of stairs. And you guys are going to see me like really play around with foundations and all of that. And I got very lucky, if I'm going to be honest with you, in terms of the foundations and with my experiment actually just kind of working out the way that it did. You see, the experiment that I did was I decided to raise some terrain at first and then, you know, add the stairs from there, because I knew that I was going to do something a little more intricate with the surrounding land around the slot. Like I knew I was going to add in like a little bit of a moat, I should say, a water moat and a bridge. And I knew I was going to do that. So to me, it's like, even though I decided to raise the ground level to a certain level and then place a set of stairs just down from there, to me, I was like, even though like the landing on those stairs would have been on terrain that is slightly higher than the actual ground level of the lot, I felt like I would be able to disguise it quite well, and I actually had to end up doing it, and I do feel like I was able to get away with it. So I got very lucky in terms of being able to build a structure that does have like a second floor that actually walks out. It's kind of like the reverse version of a walkout basement. You have more like, I guess, a walkout balcony. I mean, that's not even right there, but there was a lot of funky stuff that I had to do with the terrain to really get that effect, in terms of like giving the players the opportunity to actually have their Sims walk up a flight of stairs and then actually walk out to the outdoors, which is a legitimate outdoor setting, as opposed to them as opposed to like starting the structure in the basement or something, which wouldn't have felt right to me. So yeah, I got very lucky that the most complicated part of this build actually came together quite quickly. However, even though that part came together quite quickly for me and quite easily for me, it didn't really deny the fact that I still had a long way to go in terms of trying to execute on the vision of, you know, building out something that has traditional Japanese architecture, and then also being able to hit the target for the movie reference and this and that. So yeah, even though the most complicated part of the build was ironically the easiest part of the build, there still were quite a bit of challenges here that kind of surprised me. In order to pull off this kind of architectural style, really the key to me was getting the roof correct, and it really went beyond just like placing a couple of pagoda roofs and just kind of calling it a day. It was really for me, like the challenge here was trying to find the right sets of like pagoda roofs and whatnot, and like how the form actually makes sense with the structure. Like even when it comes to like Japanese architecture, I'm not even too sure if the roofs that we have available to us in the game itself, which are called pagoda roofs, are even the proper term to use in like when comparing to the Japanese reference that I was using. However, you know, it's what we have to play with here in The Sims 3, so that's what I'm gonna have to do. And, you know, it just again kind of speaks to the blending of two different cultures to really make this lot come to be. There was a lot of creative freedom here to actually use a tower. It's just that I needed to get that foundation part right, in terms of like being able to go up a flight of stairs and then boom, you're suddenly outside in the outdoors. So there was a lot of creative freedom to make this into a tower structure, which, you know, admittedly is mostly just set dressing. And the reason why I decided to take that creative freedom is because we were never shown any exterior shots of the House of Blue Leaves from Kill Bill Volume 1. So, you know, I was able to just kind of stretch my legs out a little bit, like so to speak, in terms of choosing what kind of an architectural form that I really wanted this particular lot to take on. So I decided to go with a tower. I really wanted something that would have like real presence to the Far East Square neighborhood. I wanted something that would be that centerpiece, and it's easy to make something tall the centerpiece of a neighborhood. And so even though this was built on ground level, and even though The Sims 3 only allows us to build up to 5 floors tall, like it still has quite a bit of presence with it, and with the different wall what are they called? They're wall objects that were placed from the Create a World series that I, you know, filmed way back when, to actually influence this particular build. Like it all just kind of adds into this, like being some sort of a grand palace sort of look and feel that I was trying to go for. And even though I never used the Forbidden Palace as my go-to reference, I just really wanted like an older style architecture tower an older style Japanese tower. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. I was looking for that word there. An older style Japanese tower as my key reference for the exterior. Because as soon as I got that foundation part right, the rest was really just up to me and really on me to make this the lot that kind of anchors this neighborhood and really gives it a big piece of the identity that I am really aiming for here. Speaking of which, this lot is actually classified as a fusion lounge in The Sims 3 late night. I always want to call it The Sims 3 nightlife, but that's The Sims 2 expansion pack, which is how you guys know I am such a fan of The Sims, is when I misquote different franchises from each other. But anyways, in The Sims 3 late night, one of the lounge types that we had access to was a classification known as a fusion lounge. And what it was essentially like that blend of different Asian cultures put into one lot, and they essentially like just served the drinks that use like these whimsical names and all that, just inspired by those different regions out in the Far East. And so that was just, it was just perfect to make this lot the fusion lounge lot that it is. And it also allowed me, again, a lot of creative freedom as well, because I really used this lot as some sort of a really big entertainment center. And you guys will see this especially in part 2 of the build, where I really lean into that entertainment center factor of the interiors. So I'm talking like there are little bits of, you know, gambling. There's little bits of karaoke here and there within the House of Blue Leaves, and I really try to expand upon the vision of the parts that we don't get to see later on in part 2 for the interiors, because it's a significant structure. And even from Kill Bill Volume 1, it always felt like a place that there was a lot more to it than what we got to see. And yeah, I really look to lean into that in part 2 of this little of the finishing parts of this build series. But anyways, let me talk a little bit about the bridge. I already mentioned it before, but the bridge was definitely key to disguising the fact that the ground level terrain was slightly higher than the actual ground level of the lot. So I used a bridge and really a moat to disguise it. And even though I used the moat and the bridge as a form of disguising some terrain that I would have never been able to like kind of get correct, I also just wanted a moat as well. And I really wanted to expand upon the landscaping part of this lot, because to me, it felt like the landscaping was indeed a very important piece of this lot, in terms of both the props that I had placed in the Create a World series, and also like based on the Kill Bill inspiration itself. Like when Uma Thurman kicks down the doors, well, she slides them open actually. I've rewatched that scene way too many times at this point. But when she slides open the doors and she's about to meet up with Lucy Liu to do some good old Hanzo sword battling, the landscaping is just drop dead gorgeous. And so I really wanted to continue that out everywhere within this lot and really try my best to make it make a lot of sense. Speaking of which, like this lot is actually a 64 by 64 lot, but to me it feels a lot smaller, and it just kind of goes to show you that like with those 64 by 64 lots, depending on your vision of what you want to build and all that, it can either feel like you don't have enough space, or it actually is more than enough for what you need to do. And yeah, this was a case where the 64 by 64 lot, like with you know, taking into consideration the bridge, the moat, the pagoda tower structure and everything, like it felt like a lot smaller to me, and it felt like I was running out of space here and there, and I kind of felt a little constrained at certain points, but not in a necessarily bad way, but in a way that just kind of challenged me here and there in terms of how I wanted to execute this vision. And so yeah, this 64 by 64 lot was certainly something that I felt was perfect for its size, because It allowed me to execute the vision as I had seen it, and it also allowed me to do a lot of other really great creative things while also not feeling like I have too much space or too much blank space to play with. What you're gonna see me do is you're gonna see me really struggle to try to make some fountains out of a set of rocks. At first I decided to use one of the pool props, which has, I forget which expansion pack it came from. I almost want to say it's from Island Paradise, but I could be wrong on that. But with one of the expansion packs, they gave us expanded pool items, and one of them was this like nice rock fountain that just kind of pours water over, and it's nice and everything, but in order to make it work, you kind of need a pool. And so I was trying to break the game a little bit, trying to use move objects and stuff, and it just really wasn't having it for me. And so what I ended up doing was, instead of trying to make like some fountains come out of some rocks to try to like give a waterfall kind of appeal, I decided to replace it with some Shane Simla dragon fountains that came with a World Adventures expansion pack. And I just kind of made sure that they were sunken into the ground a little bit so that it looked like it was pouring into the actual moat that surrounds the tower structure itself. So that was something that I kind of had to do there. And although like I'm not a huge fan of the water animations because they don't interact with the water moat at all, I just kind of decided that it looked fine enough for those dragon fountains. Now, it's definitely not going to be something that is eligible to get edited whenever I get around to doing like a Far East Neighborhood editing episode. So yeah, that is something that is likely further on down the line here. And I know like half the time whenever I record the audio for these episodes, I always like find mistakes, but that is not one of the mistakes that I am going to be looking to refine here whenever that editing episode comes to be, as I actually do like the way that the Shane Simla dragon fountains just kind of interact with the moat. Even though it doesn't interact with it perfectly, it's certainly fine for what I'm looking for. Now, if I didn't place the wall props from the Create a World series and also the archways, I would probably be in a lot more trouble in terms of like trying to make this give that cultural impact that I am looking to give it. Because in the Create a World series, when I had placed these wall props around this particular lot, it did force my hand in terms of me having to build out a lot that would match those surrounding props. But at the same time, like I always knew that this Kill Bill House of Blue Leaves reference was going to absolutely be something that I do no matter what, and this was the location. So no matter what, it was going to happen. And honestly, I'm so glad that I did place the wall props back from when I was in Create a World designing this world, because it just gives it that grandeur that I was really looking for in a centerpiece for such a predominant neighborhood within the urban center. So yeah, very glad that it worked out the way that it did, and I don't have any buyer's remorse whatsoever. Although it is one of those things where if you set yourself up too restrictively within Create a World, it can certainly backfire on you, but this is absolutely not one of the cases. So very happy with the way that it turned out. In terms of the structure itself, the tower structure, I really only want the first 2 floors actually playable for players. And the reason being is because this is a large structure. Having 5 floors playable is just, it's a little too much. It's a little too much for players, especially for a community lot that does have restrictive hours. If I remember correctly, and I could be corrected here in the comment section if I'm wrong, but the Fusion Lounge hours are only from like 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. So you really only have 12 hours of sim time to really enjoy the lot to its fullest extent. And giving like 5 floors of content is just a little too much for players, and for, well, any player really, to be able to fully explore. However, with that said, and you guys will see it in the next episode here, but there's a lot to do. This is considered like an entertainment center, and I do want players coming back to this lot to give new experiences to their Sims. Like there's going to be a restaurant portion involved with it. There's also the there's also, what else? There's the of course there's the mixology parts of it. There's the dancing parts of it. There's a whole lot to actually do within this lot itself, including gambling, which is something that I've been sprinkling in little by little throughout all of the lots, or throughout some of the community lots, I should say, within SimCity. So there's that opportunity there too. So it really is about like finding that experience that you want your sim to have, and just kind of honing in on that when you visit the House of Blue Leaves within SimCity. And yeah, that's really where we are going with that vision here. And you know, if I made all 5 floors playable, like I would really struggle with balancing the gameplay mechanics with the vision at hand. And honestly, like I was running out of ideas by the time I got to the second floor there, and you guys will see this in the next episode, because there was a lot of there's a lot of open interpretation that I could make within the House of Blue Leaves just based on the Kill Bill reference itself. And so I kind of struggled with that a little bit here and there, but I'll kind of share more on those struggles within the next episode, because it really took place more strongly within the actual interior decorating of it all. Moving back onto the exteriors, the reference that I used for the Japanese tower had a lot of red in it, and like it had the matching roofs that we have access to in the game. And so I leaned into that particular reference because it was accessible within The Sims 3. But then I also decided to add in a lot of gold as well into the exterior, just to kind of just because like red and gold is very seemed right for this particular lot, and it contrasts its interior quite significantly, because the interior, it has a little more of a modern take, almost like a mid-century modern kind of approach to it. And you guys will see that, of course, like in the next part here. But this exterior, I felt like the red, the gold, and then also the roof color being that like really deep dark green, just really matched well with each other. This build is anything but accurate, but it certainly pays tribute to it. And like you would see a tower like this that wouldn't be a perfect replica of traditional Japanese architecture, but it does take a lot of inspiration for it to fit in that kind of a neighborhood. So I think I'm just confusing myself here, because I don't think that what I just said made any sense. But I felt like everything fit. I felt like it was a good tribute to it in terms of the exterior, and yeah, still happy with the way that it all turned out, and with the surrounding walls. It just really felt like a really important lot, and that was what I was hoping to convey within the Far East neighborhood. I also placed some koi fish spawners within the mode itself. Now, when it comes to world adventures and the different spawners that you have out there, I'm kind of, I'm a little conflicted in terms of like placing the actual spawners that you can find like from the world adventures, like through the debug mode and everything, because it kind of takes away the purpose of players actually visiting the different world adventures locations from that expansion pack. Now, the reason why I'm a little conflicted here is because, you know, in this case, I felt like there was nothing else acceptable but koi fish, and actually the dragonfish as well, to place within the moat that surrounds the actual building, because, you know, it's from Shane Simla and everything, and it just made sense. Like I felt like I was doing myself a disservice if I didn't actually place some of those fish in. But you know, like I mentioned before, it does kind of take away the purpose of actually having to visit those lots within Shane Simla if you are a player. And so, you know, I don't want to necessarily water down an experience like that, or to take away an experience like that by offering something that you can get access to right within this world. But Why I'm conflicted about it is because I did read somewhere that whenever you visit a World Adventures neighborhood like Shang Simla or the Egypt or France ones, I completely forget what those ones are called within the expansion pack, but I heard that when you visit those different destinations that it can corrupt your game saves. Now again, like, this is The Sims 3 after all, and I feel like if you sneeze at your game, it can corrupt your save. So I'm not too sure like how wholeheartedly that I necessarily believe it myself, but I could see it being a thing because I've also heard of the same thing when it comes to university neighborhoods and like sending your Sims to university and loading the university destination and having that corrupt your save files and whatnot and giving you those error codes. So, you know, I'm really one of two minds there. You know, as a player, and now I haven't played The Sims 3 in a very long time. Like, I'm actually recording these videos and editing them without having to actually load up my game for a little while here. But yeah, like as a player, there is a mod out there that allows you to pursue a university degree, just like working from home, like within the within your own neighborhood and all that. So, you know, I don't know is really what I'm trying to say. Like, there's a way to kind of get around certain gameplay aspects here and there, and I just wanted to put it out in this video just to kind of see if there is some truth to, you know, to those loading screens actually corrupting save files and whatnot. And I would imagine that the same could be said of into the future if that is the case, which is super annoying, by the way. But, you know, if there is a lot of truth to that, then I'll certainly look into adding more activities within my world itself so that players don't feel like they have to travel as much in order to get those experiences. So, for example, like with World Adventures, there's the different spawners, of course. Now, I'm not about to go make a zoo or something with all the different World Adventures spawners, although that is like not a bad idea per se, but at the same time, it'd be really annoying for me to actually do. I don't really want to do that at all. It was never in the cards, really. But yeah, I know that there's the martial arts skill that is something that is really learned within Shane Simla as well. So maybe there's an opportunity somewhere down the road for me to build out more lots that have those martial arts objects on them so that you don't have to leave, so that you don't have to travel to Shane Simla. But anyways, let me know if my understanding is correct there in the comment section. Just let me know if, you know, traveling to those destinations actually corrupts save files, or if that's just like a unfounded rumor out in the Sims 3 world here that, you know, I just kind of came across. But anyways, back to the build. Selecting the windows was super hard for me. I just, like, even the windows that I ended up using, I still don't feel are like completely correct. Selecting the windows was really hard for me to actually figure out here, and I ended up using the World Adventures windows, which, you know, goes again, really just speaks to the fact that this is a blend of, you know, Chinese and Japanese cultures. I might be basing this tower structure off of a traditional Japanese tower. However, the roof is likely a little more Chinese, and the windows are definitely Chinese in terms of like what I have access to the objects. So although it kind of sounds like I'm complaining about it, I'm really trying to explain that that sort of blend of architectural styles and what I have access to is exactly why the vision of the Far East Square neighborhood within my SimCity world, in terms of it just being a blend of Far East cultures, is really you know, it's really evident in what I have access to and what I'm taking as inspiration and what I am trying to achieve in the vision and everything. So yeah, the red that I ended up using, I've already mentioned it a little bit, but I will touch upon it again. It's a very bold red, and I've used red in some of my other structures, like, but they were all for like masonry structures and for brick builds and all of that. Whereas the red here is a lot more bolder, and it's actually a highlight of the structure, as opposed to it just being like a red brick wall. It's actually something that's a lot more bolder and a lot more pronounced and a lot more striking than what a red brick wall would normally come across as. Now, that's not to say that I don't like red masonry walls for exteriors and stuff, which I have used many times throughout the builds, especially like within the Midtown neighborhood, as I do feel like masonry is a very timeless look. But in this case, like the color red was certainly something that was very much like a feature of this structure, and it helps to make it stand out from its surrounding structures. And you'll see that as we get into some of the skyline shots towards the end of today's video, is that this building, the House of Blue Leaves, actually stands out when looking at it and when looking at the SimCity skyline. When working on the landscaping, I originally added the water wheel just as an experiment, just to kind of see how I felt about it. And as you can tell, when I went to recolor it and everything, it was certainly going to be something that was going to stay. You see, I really didn't like the fountain spray objects or the geysers or even the domes that are available in the game. Like, I just felt like it was almost too distracting within the actual mode itself. Whereas I did want to add like a little bit of more motion, a little bit more action and intrigue on one side of the tower structure here. And you know, I just felt like the water wheel itself was kind of perfect to achieve that part of the vision. You see, the moat and everything that surrounds the actual tower, it has to be very detailed with a lot of vegetation. It has to look like it's very carefully manicured and all of that. And that's really where a lot of the floating lanterns came into play, which were both one came from the World Adventures expansion pack, and I believe that the other one, the smaller one, came from the Seasons expansion pack. I could be wrong on that, but to me, those were both those both felt very right to have, in terms of like just doing some of the decorating the water and the moat that really surrounds the tower. And yeah, I really like how all of that turned out. Now, when it came to adding in more vegetation and landscaping around the actual moat itself, the rock wall was super tedious. Or yeah, the rock wall, for lack of a better word, was just super tedious to actually construct, because I was using a lot of move objects. I was using a lot of those you know, when you hold down Alt and get it to kind of slide around, I was using a lot of that, and I was trying to not make it look so uniform. I was really trying to go for a natural look. And I think that like when you're looking at the speed build now, it doesn't exactly convey it as such, but when you step back, it actually does look a lot more natural than what I kind of give it credit for. Who knows, this could be like one of the few things that I might actually edit about this lot, because if there is one thing about this lot that I'm pretty proud of, is really the fact that I don't think that I'm going to be making a lot of edits to this particular lot, because I really like the way that things turned out. And even though I'm rewatching this whole process and looking at the final product and everything, and how this build actually turned out, I really don't see much that I would change. Like, maybe there's an opportunity here with these rock walls, and I keep calling them rock walls, and I'm pretty sure they're not called that, but there might be an opportunity there to just try to make it look a little more natural. But that's where you guys, I guess, could come in. If you have a suggestion, feel free to lay that into the comment section. I do not mind at all. And whenever I go about to doing neighborhood edit episodes and such, I always take a look at the comments first on each of the videos before I actually set out to go ahead and make the edits and changes in my actual lots themselves. So that is something that I will continue to do going forward. And it's also, you know, it's just really the way that I work, is that I try to get something at least completed as quickly as I possibly can, and then I go back and I start doing the edits. Now, this particular build was certainly an exception to all of this, because I was doing this build during school. It is a complicated build, as I had mentioned in the beginning of this video, and just that, and combined with the fact that my schooling this semester was actually very intense. I just could not find the time to really complete the build and then film the episode and record the audio, etc., up until now at least. And so when I was doing this build, I really had to tackle it at different parts, and so I really took my time actually doing the build, which I think is going to lead to less editing later on. There was a point, like when I was doing the interiors, where I needed to really step back from it and, you know, take a break from it, because I was just a little lost in what I was doing. But I'll explain that in the next part, because it has a lot more to do with the next part and where I was going for that vision and everything there. So yeah, that is pretty much what was I going to say? Yeah, the surrounding moat and the rock walls and everything there, like, they really all felt like they came together. The landscaping is something that I like. I really love the floating lanterns. I guess like another opportunity that I might take into consideration is maybe decorating the or furnishing, I suppose, the balconies that surround the structure on all of the levels. I left them pretty bare. I left them pretty bare bones, which is just kind of holding true to the actual reference that I used, but at the same time they are pretty bare bones. Like, I don't even have lighting on them. Maybe that might be an opportunity to like just edit in some quick things here and there. Like, I feel like at this point, if I'm going to be completely honest, is that I'm looking for things to change, and I don't necessarily think that that's warranted for this build. But hey, if you guys are thinking that there is like something huge that I need to change, absolutely, just let me know in the comment section. I really don't mind. And but yeah, like, overall, I'm very happy with it, and with the different process that I used to approach this particular build as opposed to my previous builds and all that. It seemed like it all came together, and that I was sort of editing as I was going along. And yeah, I'm overall pretty happy with the way that the landscaping turned out. I think that the bridge turned out beautifully, but at this point, like, building bridges is pretty much a like, I've got it nailed down to a science at this point, and even sloped driveways are now pretty easy for me to actually manage and build myself. So yeah, bridges are like, just to bring it back to bridges, like, if you've got like mismatched terrain levels and you can't get them to like blend into each other smoothly, you know, a bridge can really save your skin on that one. And in this case, this is absolutely the case that I had to deal with, is just with, you know, all those foundation levels sitting differently, and raising the terrains and all of that to get that upper terrain, upper garden level, I suppose. It just kind of really led to a situation where I had two different level terrains, and, you know, I just needed to link them together with either a bridge and a moat, and it all seemed to just kind of disguise itself. So, you know, it was a great solution, but it was, yeah. But yeah, if you're ever running into a situation though where you have terrains at two different levels and you need to kind of blend them in better together, maybe a bridge would actually work. Like, even if you did like a bridge with a dried out riverbed underneath, that could look pretty cool as well. I thought that the paper lanterns actually added a nice little touch. I forget which expansion pack that they came with, but they're pretty large, honestly, and I always look for an excuse to use them no matter what I'm doing, no matter what kind of a build it is. I'm sure that you guys like see me like pop it out and then delete it because it wouldn't suit the lot or whatever in previous builds, but this time I was able to use them, and I'm so glad I did because I absolutely love them. But yeah, the paper lanterns are here to stay, and I'm very happy that they are here. It's such a small thing. It's like it's one of my more favorite objects, and this is like one of the opportunities that I get to actually use them, and they actually feel like they are perfect. Actually, you know, another object that I really like are pretty much any of the hanging outdoor lights, like the hanging light bulbs or the hanging what are they, like jar lights. I really like the look of those, generally speaking, to really help set the mood for an outdoor setting, and here they just absolutely were perfect. We're going to move on a little bit from like finishing up the outdoors here. Like I said, like when I was constructing this lot and building it, I did it in parts, and I would sit down, do the foundation wall, for example, and then, you know, quit my game and probably do homework or study afterwards. And then I would start up my game again, just work on the exterior and then close it off. And in this case, like I opened up my game, I wanted to do the moat and the bridge that surrounded everything, including the landscaping, so I would just open up my game, just continue working on that part, and then close it. Usually I will go at things and pretty much do almost everything all at once. Like for a single family home, I'll build the foundation and the basement, and I'll get like half of it done, and then I'll move on to the interior. So I like to get things done like from interior to exterior, whereas this time I had to like really break it down because this was a complicated build. But yeah, we are going to move on from doing some of the exteriors, and this is, I guess, kind of a sneak preview to what the next episode is going to be, because I really do a lot of interior work, and with the way that I had to divide up the episodes and the clips and everything, I had to include a little bit of the interior work here as well. So pretty much what I'll be doing is I'll be outlining the interior for the first floor, and one thing that was very important in terms of that layout was actually getting the hallway correct. There's a scene in Kill Bill where you've got Lucy Liu's character and all of her and all of her henchmen just kind of like walking with her. It's a really badass scene. It's got badass music to it and everything. And I was like, we are absolutely going to include that as part of this build. So the only way to like kind of make it make sense, just with the way that the scene is shot, and there's also another scene where they have one of her henchmen like run down the hallway, is that it has to be like a wraparound hallway. And you know, it's very red for a hallway. It is very red, and this is not really a color that I really lean into a whole lot. I mean, I did it before, like with the modern one bedroom build or whatever that I did a few episodes back, but I used the color red very sparingly, whereas here I'm using it almost as like a neutral color. Like it's very predominant throughout the entire build, really. And to me, it, like in my head, it doesn't make sense as to why they're calling it the House of Blue Leaves when there's so much red within it, but whatever. I kind of addressed that in the next episode here when we start to build out more of the interiors and such. But anyways, that hallway was very red, and there were a couple of scenes and shots where it just kind of, where you like would turn a corner and you would still have more hallway to go. And so I decided that the hallway now needs to just like wrap around the entire structure. The only downfall to this, like for this design choice of mine, is just that I wasn't able to like get some sort of a closet in here, or a coat check, I should say. But that's okay. Like this lot isn't meant to be perfect, and the coat checks were just a lot of set dressing anyways. And speaking of which, like I mentioned before, this is a tribute to like the Kill Bill House of Blue Leaves set, I suppose. It's not a one-for-one creation. Like, that would be impossible for me to do just with everything that I have available at my fingertips. And even if I was more comfortable with downloading custom content, I probably wouldn't be able to recreate it as a one-for-one creation. But anyways, when it came to the structure in itself, and this is something that I kind of forgot to mention, is that I tried my best to make it as centered as possible. Like, I wanted it to be centered to the lot and centered to the approach, like with the bridge and everything. So the exterior is very centered, whereas the interior is actually kind of off center. And I ended up having to do that because I really wanted the dance floor in the middle to actually be the centerpiece of the entire structure, like the focal point that players are going to see immediately upon visiting this lot. And it's also like the focal point of the scene in Kill Bill Volume 1 as well. So, you know, that was probably the most important focal point of the interior part of the design choices that I was making. And so what made it kind of complicated for the dance floor and all that was that there is a set of stairs on both sides that lead up to the upper level, which then eventually leads out into that upper garden level as well. And in the beginning, I only decided to do one set of stairs because I thought I was really going to do something here, and that I was going to you know, kind of go off on my own little creative tangent. But by the end of the next episode, you're going to see me add in the second staircase, and I'll explain more on the reasons why for that when we get into that second part there. But yeah, it is the dance floor in the middle was needed to be centered, and I couldn't actually center it with the doors without having it like shifted to the side just a little bit to fit in a staircase on each side. It was quite annoying actually, and it bothered me a little bit, but I figured that with these hallways and everything that, you know, I could get, like, I feel like I got away with it, and you know, I feel like I got away with it in a way, but also like I could get away with it even more if I chose to do a different setup for the archways into the actual main floor area. Whereas, you know, in this case, I decided to stay true to the actual film, and by giving it like that little mini pergola structure over it. But anyways, like, we'll get more into that in the next episode though. Although I have mentioned it several times, I do think it bears repeating because this is not a one-for-one recreation of the House of Blue Leaves as we know it from Kill Bill Volume 1. Rather, I am literally trying to pay tribute to it and to try to recreate it as best as I can, doing my best to match the colors and the interior design choices that were made for that film and for that set, and, you know, just kind of trying to, you know, make it happen really. I have to say though, like, the walls and the floors were pretty accurate in terms of what I was able to pick out from rewatching that film several times at this point, or at least rewatching the scenes and the clips on YouTube just to like try to gain some sort of inspiration. Like I said, I would do this project in parts, and like in between studying and doing assignments and studying for exams and stuff, I would rewatch a quick clip and then try to like design it and, you know, implement it within the actual interior itself. So yeah, this project was really drawn out. This lot build was really drawn out, more drawn out than I would ever expect any lot build to be drawn out for, if I'm going to be completely honest, just because there were so many layers of complication. Plus, I really wanted to get the tribute right for the Kill Bill House of Blue Leaves set there. So there was a lot going on here. The stakes were high is really what I'm trying to say. So one key feature from the House of Blue Leaves was this glass dance floor. They had like some landscaping underneath it. It's a really cool idea actually, and that was something that I absolutely couldn't recreate here at my version of the House of Blue Leaves. And a big reason for that was because I decided to prioritize the upper garden level with the walkout outdoor space there, as opposed to trying to figure out how to do a see-through dance floor. Now, if I was going to do that, I would have to place the ground level on a foundation, and then I would have to delete the middle of the foundation. I would have to place floor over that foundation hole after doing the landscaping, and then I'd probably place those glass floor carpets from Into the Future on top of that, just to get that see-through effect. But that just really wasn't possible with the way that I had to work the foundations and to work the terrain to get that upper walkout garden area in this case, because the stairs wouldn't connect to a foundation floor for whatever reason. It just really wasn't in the cards for me, and I know I've tried doing that off camera, and that was an experiment that I did before even filming, and it would mess up the walls like crazy, and it just really wasn't going to make the rest of the structure feasible. So unfortunately, the glass dance floors is not going to actually happen. I decided to use the dance floor from the 70s, 80s, and 90s stuff pack because it's colored. It looks nicer than the late night floors. The late night dance floors, don't get me wrong, like they're nice in the context that you can use them in. Like, I'm not trying to hate on those at all, but those dance floors, like, I needed something more of a statement piece, and those dance floors just really weren't going to cut it. And they're kind of, I don't want to say difficult to recolor or customize, but they just really, like, I've never used one of the late night dance floors as a centerpiece for something. I just don't, I don't like them enough to make them a focal point. And the the 70s, 80s, and 90s stuff pack has this dance floor that, you know, changes colors, and I used it in the Saturn nightclub, and I really like it as a dance floor. It functions the exact same, so I just felt like I couldn't lose with it. The only problem with the dance floor, and I'm sure that I had mentioned it already, is that I actually had to redo it because I decided to put in another set of stairs just to be a little more movie accurate. But again, like, I'll explain that in the next part. So what you're seeing right in front of you, if you're thinking it looks a little off center, well, you would be right first and foremost, but it's going to continue to look off center even after I give it its final placement and everything, just because that's the way that this lot decided to get built as. It decided to be perfectly centered on the exterior and with all the major structural components, but then as soon as I got into the interior, it just decided that it didn't want to be centered no matter what I did. And a big part of that was actually the stair placement, and the stair placement was prioritized because that is more movie accurate. So, you know, I had to take some L's on this build here, but maybe I'm just not seeing a way to successfully center the main floor area so that it's centered with the main doorway into it, and, you know, everything else is centered around it. So yeah, that's really my gripes with it. The pergola over the built over the, what do you call it, over the main entrance into the main floor area, that is definitely more movie inspired because I was not able to get a roof structure to actually work within a building. Like, it was doing some weird stuff with me. And if you look in the Kill Bill movie there, you do see the pergola structure have a you do see it have a roof over it just as like part of the entrance, and I just wasn't able to make that happen in my game. So I was like, okay, you know, I knew going into this project that I wasn't going to get everything like one for one. It wasn't going to be an exact replica. So I just decided to, you know, cut my losses on that and just to improvise a little bit with the pergola structure to at least make it look like a grander entrance. But yeah, that was just it was just not in the cards for me to get a roof within a structure that has a roof on top of it. The game just really wasn't playing nice there. And maybe there's like an object out there that I could have used. So if there is, or if you guys have a different solution, again, feel free to drop a comment. I don't mind. I have an edit episode for the Far East Square neighborhood way down in the future, but again, leave those comments. I do read the comments before I actually go about to doing the edits. Now, you'll see me like use some of the shutters from the Sims 3 store. It came with the hibachi table and like that set, if I remember correctly. Love the shutters. This is like one of the only opportune moments that I really have to use it, except for maybe in some future builds. But hey, again, we'll cross those bridges when we get there. But anyways, when watching the clips from the Kill Bill movie and watching the House of Blue Leaves scenes and everything, it just feels like this huge entertainment space, which is what I'm going for. But it felt like that there were like pockets of restaurants here and there. And when I was using those shutters, I just really didn't want to add like a whole lot more seating in there. Just because I felt like it was kind of overkilling it for this lot. And, you know, when taking gameplay into consideration here, although you can have a fully functioning restaurant here and actually run it as a restaurant if you so chose as a player, having that much seating was just feeling like a little bit of overkill. And, you know, to be fair, like I have overkilled for seating in previous restaurant builds before, but you know, I just wanted to avoid that mistake. So instead I decided to make that area a little more decorative and a little bit more set dressing like than anything else. You still can pass through it. It still looks nice. It still feels on theme, and it does still pay tribute to the Kill Bill movie itself. So I'm not angry at it is really what I'm trying to say. But I decided not to make it more seating space because it just felt like it was imbalancing the gameplay at that point. But hey, I never really took that advice in the past. Like, I'm thinking of the Old Town Station restaurant when I'm specifically mentioning this, and how there's a lot of seating there, and I went all the way in on that one. Anyways, we are going to be wrapping up the episode here pretty soon. Now, I mentioned before that I have divided this build into 2 different episodes, so you can expect the second episode to come out fairly soon after this, probably like a week's difference in terms of the scheduling and all that. Speaking of which, like, I'm going to be doing a channel announcement in the near future, which will talk about the scheduling going into the new year and beyond, you know, just taking into account what my second semester is going to be doing and like the anticipated workload that I now have a more realistic outlook on. So yeah, we'll talk about that in a future video that'll release before I start my second semester, so that I can guarantee you guys. But anyways, in the next part, we are going to be doing a lot more interiors, and there's a lot more building to really explain here, and I really love the way that this structure turned out, and I hope that you guys are as excited for the House of Blue Leaves as I have built it right before your very eyes. Anyways, I just want to take another moment here just to say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for coming back to the channel. And, you know, if you've enjoyed this video, if you've enjoyed kind of getting back into the swing of things with myself here at Sovereign Gaming, then feel free to like the video and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Again, I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and that I hope you have yourself a wonderful day.